Hi, in this video I'll help you get to know your car a little better. At the end of this video I've put together a straightforward infographic that summarizes all the key points. Like, subscribe and comment below. It really helps.
Ah, the check engine light. We've all been there, right? That little light pops on and your stomach just drops. And when you pull a code like U0100 7F from your Chevrolet, it just sounds confusing. Well, don't worry. Today, we're going to decode that exact message. We'll break down what it means, what's causing it, and most importantly, how you can figure it out. Let's find out what your car is trying to tell you. So first things first, what even is this code? Well, the U0100 part is pretty standard. It means lost communication with ECM/PCM. But that little 7F on the end, that's actually a really key piece of the puzzle. It gets specific about how the communication was lost. And in this case, it usually means a required message just didn't show up on time. So think of this less like a broken part and more like a sign that your car's internal communication network has a serious glitch. At its absolute core, the U0100 code is pointing to a breakdown in communication with the brain of your vehicle. That's the engine control module, or ECM. Sometimes it's combined with the transmission controls, and we call that a powertrain control module, or PCM. Now, this is not about a simple failed part like a spark plug. This is about the central command center of your car suddenly going dark. And that's the most important thing to remember here. We're hunting for a communication breakdown, not just one broken component.
Okay, so to solve this thing, we've got to understand how this whole network is supposed to work in the first place. Let's dig into the why behind this communication breakdown.
Here's probably the best way to think about it. Imagine all of your car's computers are on a big conference call. The ECM, the engine's computer, is kind of like the team leader, and it expects to hear from everybody else on a regular basis. That's what's known as a supervised periodic message. Well, when one of those key members fails to check in on time, bam, the ECM flags it. And that's our error code. It's like someone's line just went dead in the middle of a meeting. So who are the likely culprits for this whole mess? Well, we have four main suspects. It could be a problem with the wiring itself, a message not getting through at the connection point, a faulty ECM, the brain itself, or maybe a wider computer malfunction. This table right here, this is basically our roadmap for the whole investigation.
All right, let's start our investigation with the first and, honestly, the most common suspect, the physical wiring. Before we jump to conclusions about some complex computer failure, it's absolutely crucial to make sure the basic lines of communication are even intact. I'm telling you, this step alone could save you a ton of time and money.
A faulty wiring system is such a classic cause for codes like this. I mean, think about it. A loose connection, a wire that's been rubbing against something and frayed over time, or even just some corrosion on a connector. Any of these simple physical problems can totally interrupt that complex digital conversation happening between your car's computers and trigger this code.
So here's your first action plan. Get in there and just do a visual inspection. Trace the wiring harnesses that connect to your main computer modules. Are all the plugs pushed in all the way? Do you see any wires that look cracked or where the plastic is worn away? Sometimes, believe it or not, the fix is as simple as plugging something back in securely. Okay, so let's say the wires all look good. Our investigation is definitely not over. We've got to move to the next logical step. The problem might not be the wires themselves, but the actual connection points where they plug into the modules.
And this brings us right back to our conference call. Remember, this code often gets triggered when that supervised periodic message we talked about doesn't get received. This is our silent team member. The ECM is sitting there waiting for that digital, "Hey, I'm here and I'm okay" message, but it just gets silence. This points to a problem right at the module connection itself.
So your next checklist is super simple, but it's really crucial. You need to locate the different control modules in your vehicle. Then check each one and just make sure the wiring harness is plugged in nice and tight. Seriously, a connection that's vibrated loose over thousands of miles is a super common reason for this kind of communication failure. Now, if you've checked all the wiring and you've wiggled all the connections and everything seems physically solid, well, now we have to start considering that the problem might be with the hardware itself. Let's look at the two less common but definitely more serious potential causes. So now we're looking at two big possibilities. On one hand, it could be a general malfunction in one of the car's secondary computers. On the other hand, it could be a failure of the engine control module itself, the very brain that's supposed to be listening. In either scenario, the problem isn't the connection anymore. It's the component itself that's failed. And yeah, unfortunately, if the problem really is a faulty computer or ECM, the fix is pretty straightforward, but it's not always simple or cheap.
The component has to be replaced. This is often a job you'll want to leave to a professional because the new unit usually has to be programmed specifically to your vehicle. So after going through all our suspects, what's the big picture here? Let's pull this all together into a clear, final action plan that you can follow step by step.
This is your game plan, from the easiest thing to the most complex. Start by inspecting all the wiring for any visible damage. Then, check every single module connection to make sure it's tight. If those two things don't solve it, then it's time to have the computer and the ECM professionally tested. And finally, if a component is confirmed to be bad, it needs to be replaced. Following this logical order is going to save you a lot of headache, and probably some cash too. And that really brings us to the single most important takeaway from all of this. It's all about a methodical diagnosis. Like the experts say, it is so crucial to identify the exact cause of the problem. Don't just start guessing and throwing expensive parts at it. By following these steps, you can actually pinpoint the real source of the communication failure. The key thing to remember here is that the U0100 code is a communication breakdown, not necessarily a big, expensive broken component. By starting with the simple stuff first, the wiring and the connections, you have a really good chance of solving this yourself. You've now got a clear path forward. So the only question left is, are you ready to pop the hood?